back, and today I'll be telling the story of Akbar Birbal. So there are parts to it where Akbar meets Birbal, how Birbal goes to the court. So there are a lot of parts. The first part is how Akbar meets the Birbal. So without further ado, let's start. Stories of Akbar and Birbal. Number 1. The Hunt. The jungle became a blur of shapes and shadows as Akbar the Great, Emperor of India, spurred his mighty steed into a fierce gallop. Try to keep up, he yelled over his shoulder, realizing his sluggish courtiers were falling behind. He heard them shout and whine, unable or unwilling to match his pace. Instead of slowing down or stopping, he continued to speed up. Faster he went and faster still, laughing all the while. He dug beneath branches, darted around trees, and charged through piles of fallen leaves, sending mice and lizards scurrying for safety. Nothing made his heart beat quicker or filled him with more joy than riding. Nothing, that is, except the thrill of the hunt. But first, he needed a target. It was only when he cleared the jungle that he found one in a faraway field. A wild hare was grazing in the sunshine. It sniffed the air, its ears twitching. Suddenly, it bolted, fleeing as fast as his legs could carry it. In an instant, Akbar was at its heel, a delighted grin on his face. The hunt was on. The chase took them through fields of tall grass, over rushing streams, and back into the jungle. When the hare burst into a clearing, Akbar had the chance he needed. He drew his bow, took aim, and "Your Majesty!" Thud! The arrow sank into a tuft of grass, missing the hare by a whisker. Akbar whipped his head around, demanding to know who had distracted him. 4 nervous courtiers were slumped on their horses, looking exhausted. One was splashed from head to toe in mud. Another had twigs in his hair. 2 were covered in scratches, and all of them were panting for breath. "Apologies, sir," wheezed the muddy courtier. "But we have come very far, and it's starting to get dark. All of the other courtiers have turned back. I think it would be wise if we return to the palace too. At night, the land is full of vicious beasts, waiting for the opportunity to pounce." Akbar watched the hare disappear in a thicket and sighed. "I suppose you're right," he said. He patted his tired horse, then eyed his courtiers. "You may lead me back to the palace now." If it were possible, the courtiers looked even more nervous. They gathered together, muttering and murmuring, staring at the muddy courtier, until at last he spoke up again. "My lord," he said, with a slight tremor in his voice, we do not know the way." The courtiers shied away from the emperor, afraid of what might happen next. But Akbar simply chuckled. "Of course you don't," he said. "And why should you? I led us on this hunt, so it's only fair that I work out how to get us back. Come on, I will lead us home." He gave his reins a gentle shake, and they set off. Hours of wandering later, they were no closer to the palace. When at last they came across a road, they thought they were saved. But after following this road for a while, it split into 3 separate paths with no signposts to say which each path led. "I think it's this way," said Akbar, convinced they should travel on the path to the right. The courtiers were apprehensive. "Your Majesty," the muddy yet brave courtier began. "Are you absolutely certain that this is the correct path to take? Remember when you thought the way back to the palace was to that murky river, but instead we ended up back where we started, cold and dripping wet?" "I do," replied Akbar with a rueful smile. "But I'm sure it's this way now. Do you doubt me?" This time the youngest courtier piped up. "Not at all, my lord. But just to be sure, why don't we ask that boy coming down the road towards us?" "A splendid idea!" exclaimed Akbar. He climbed from his horse, shook out his stiff legs in turn, and walked slowly over to the boy. "You, there!" he called. "Which of these roads go to the palace?" The boy smiled. "Why, none of them do," he replied. Akbar heard his courtiers groan behind him. "Are you sure?" he said, stroking his chin. "I was convinced one of these roads went to the palace." "I am Certain, said the boy with a grin. Everyone knows a road cannot move, he continued. So, how could any of these roads go to the palace? People go to places, not roads. The courtiers gasped. Did this boy realize whom he was teasing? Nobody spoke to the emperor that way. Nobody. How dare you! Started the muddy courtier. But before he had a chance to finish, Akbar let out a deep, booming guffaw. Ha! He roared. You had me questioning myself for a moment, but you are right. These roads cannot go anywhere. Now tell me, what is your name? Mahesh Das, said the boy. And who are you? I? Oh, I am the Emperor of India, replied Akbar, and he took off his signet ring and dropped it into the boy's palm. I need clever and fearless men like you in my court. One day, when you're fully grown, come and find me. Show this ring, and I shall recognize you at once. Mahesh stared at the ring, speechless. These men were soaked through and covered in mud and twigs. How was he to know who he had been talking to? The Emperor of India? Well, said Akbar, breaking the silence, which way should I go to reach the palace? At once, Mahesh pointed to the road on the left. Follow that road and return to the palace, sire. Excellent, said Akbar, once more straddling his horse, just as I thought. And he kicked his horse into a canter and set off for home. The end. Thank you so much, you guys. Well, this was the first part. There is one more part of Mahesh. Basically, Mahesh Das is Birbal. So basically, Birbal goes to the palace next day, and he shows blah blah blah. So it's a long story. I really can't explain, but I really hope you enjoyed today's video. And have you seen my latest video of my 7 rocks thingy? So yeah, I'll be posting some 7 rock videos too. So yeah, I guess I'll see you in my next video. Bye. Toodles, guys.